Good morning and welcome to the Three Panes of Incident Reporting. My name is Amanda and I work within the sales department here at Effective Software. Just wanted to, essentially run through what we hear from clients on what they typically struggle with from incident reporting and how we believe that a structure and a process within a health and safety software could assist. So today, if there are any questions that you would like answered, please feel free to type them in the chat bar. I won't be able to answer them during the webinar here, but I will get back to you following the webinar. We'll also make the recording available after this afternoon. So to get started, most clients that I speak with would say that there's some really common issues with their processes as far as incident reporting. So it would be the likes of your manual processes using paper records and filing cabinets, maybe some large Excel spreadsheets shared across the business, as well as tracking your actions through emails and phone calls. So more time consuming and not the ideal process for yourselves. I guess the bulk of information just adds up and people feel that they're less able to keep track of everything. Now, first and foremost, one of the biggest pains that we hear would be the engagement piece. So the lack of being able to collect your leading indicators, whether you title them hazards, observations, good catches, but also giving, correct tools to individuals to be able to engage. So if you're using paper report forms, is that obstructing kind of the engagement for your team and making the whole process more difficult and time consuming for yourselves on the reporting aspect? And then therein, if you're not able to capture those leading indicators, do the risks of the business become more difficult to track and therefore more elusive when you're looking to address and close them out? And as a result, then, when you are reporting up to your executive team, is it more difficult to make them aware of those risks that permeate the business? And so how we would kind of address this from a top level is that most businesses would say that they're excellent at recording things once they've happened. So whether it be a minor injury or something as serious as a RIDDOR, that they would take the necessary steps to make sure that that's closed out appropriately. But how we believe that any kind of a system can assist is really powering that statistical evidence through leading indicators. So gathering as many of those hazards and observations, collecting as many near misses as possible to drive down the later stages of those incidents and accidents. So first and foremost, an easy and referenceable format that all of your staff can engage with from a desktop or a mobile application is crucial. So engaging them in a language that's both standardized and obviously customized to your actual business is crucial. So they can quickly report a hazard or an observation, upload any images or attachments, and this will notify potentially the next person in line to receive that. Now, obviously, in today's working world, mobile applications are crucial. So a hazard or mobile observation reporting application that can be used on a tablet or a mobile phone is essentially the tool that we feel is most accessible for the majority of workers today. So giving them sort of a social feed of observations that are being reported throughout the business, as well as a quick and easy format that they can attach images, classify their hazards, and alert their nearest manager. And what you should result with is some really intuitive dashboarding reports that will allow you to see basically the peaks and valleys of this actual operation that you're working within. So understanding maybe where the higher risks are in the business, maybe geographically which sites have higher risk levels or better at reporting those risks, maybe observations on time, time of day, time of year, month, what have you, and just giving you better information to forecast maybe when the riskier areas of work or times are within your business. Now, the second pain that most people will come and speak to us on is the quality of the information. So first and foremost, the communication of that information throughout the organization. A number of times I'll hear from health and safety managers that if they have a number of sites that they're trying to manage, it can go days, sometimes even weeks before they would be made aware of a more serious incident on one of their sites, simply because there's a breakdown in communication as far as relaying that information up through the chain. And as well then, when you move into that investigation stage, if the initial information captured on the report isn't of a high enough quality, what you can typically result in is a very stagnant and basically difficult investigation to launch. Without consistent language and I guess classifications, categories across the business, from a reporting aspect, it can be very hard to actually marry up trends or forecast an understanding of what you're actually seeing there. So by standardizing the language, maybe classifications of incidents, slips, trips and falls, what have you, or the types of incidents, minor injury, lost day case, what have you, you're taking away the inconsistency that can occur in this kind of situation. So here's how we kind of, I guess, trigger these notifications within the organization. So an incident or accident would occur on site, and whether it be using a mobile device or a desktop, laptop, an individual can report that, and this will trigger instant email notifications to any number of different people depending on the severity of the incident or accident. So this workflow would very much be your own preference that you can set into the system. But essentially, these email notifications will provide an instant link to this report, enabling them, given their administrative access, to accept or reject that report back to the original reporter. By rejecting it, they can instruct them that they need to collect more information, upload images, what have you, and by accepting it, this essentially means that they can now move into the investigation stage. The report form obviously has to be quite simple and easy, and as I mentioned there before, being able to classify the incident types and the classifications of those particular incidents, accidents in a standardized format, which will then on the back end feed into your reporting concepts. You can also input guidance text that will enable someone who may not be familiar with the language of health and safety to still report in an accurate format. Obviously, they will collect the date and time and location of this particular event, as well as anyone that may be involved in this particular incident. Now, those classifications can be adjusted or amended at any time by one of your top-level users, enabling you to keep the language of your software at the most up-to-date within your own organization without additional costs or potential delays for configuration. And then on the back end, as I mentioned, all of these aspects will feed into an intuitive database of reports. So in this situation, the body map where you are tagging for different potential injuries that may have occurred will then feed in and correlate against the incident types. So giving you a very quick referenceable tool to understand maybe what more training needs to go in place or potentially PPE to protect these body parts. Now, duty of care is a huge aspect all the way from health and safety managers up through the executive branch. And the reason that this is so important, specifically in the date and time that we operate now, is everyone is aware of the increased sentencing guidelines, the tremendous increase in HSE prosecutions of these companies, directors, what have you, and the financial impacts that can occur when a company cannot prove that they have done everything within their power to minimize risks to their employees and persons that might be affected by the business. So how we can work to help, I guess, address some of these challenges. We'll go on to a couple of slides here, but these are the main points that most people would speak to. So the integration of information across all areas of health and safety. So most people would say that their health and safety could be quite scattered, or that there will be pockets of health and safety and information may be stored in different areas, making it quite difficult for someone to actually gather all the information they need at one time, whether it be training records or proof of risk assessments, what have you. Action tracking is another big one, in the sense that if an incident does occur, are you able to prove that you've done everything that's required to close out any potential gaps or risks that have been raised from this incident or accident, and be actually able to prove that these were closed out and approved by potentially someone in your organization. And then finally, a lot of people would say that, they'd be dealing with historical claims that would be coming back to them, where the information is very, very hard to pull back from their historical databases. So giving you a centralized and protected location for all of your incident reports can be tremendous when you're up against claims potentially that could have happened years previously. So first and foremost, by, again, linking these different areas of the software and your information to one centralized hub, you can essentially tap into this information at any point. So as you can see here, by simply tagging an employee into this incident form, we're going to automatically populate all of their risk and training matrix into the actual incident form. So red, amber, green, giving you an instant status of where this employee was at the time of the incident. Obviously, if this was a manual handling incident and their manual handling training was flagged up red, this would be an immediate concern for the investigator. By using a very intuitive and easy to use action tracker, we can again classify and prioritize this actual action, setting in motion a number of workflows in the background that we may have set up into the software. But assigning it out to an individual and giving them a due date for completion means essentially that you're telling the system that this is how this has to be closed out on. And this is your duty of care, your proof of duty of care, in the sense that any interaction with this particular action will be logged against the individual's user name and as well as the date. So instead of communications by email and phone, which can be very hard to track later on, the system will act as your living record of all of the information that you need. So what you'll end up with is actually a very comprehensive report that will be user, date, and time stamped for every action or event that's occurred during this investigation or incident. So as you see here, you'll have full clarity on who actually reported this incident, who accepted the incident, what the date and time was, and the specific locations, giving you immediate information there quite quickly and easily. And your action log essentially will be always tagged to this particular incident, and there again you'll be able to see the user login and the date that they actually closed out this action. You can also set in approvals for this, so ensuring that individuals will be able to have this signed off by a manager or whomever prior to closing out this incident investigation. And then finally, giving you again that intuitive dashboard reporting. So being able to track all those actions, make sure that if anything is going overdue, you're well aware of that and can set a motion in place to get that resolved. But as well, giving you some metrics on how long do our investigations take, how long do these actions take to actually close out, and what are most of our actions actually related to. By using that trending information, you should be able to predict and hopefully prevent these incidents from occurring in the future. So finally, why do we care to prove this duty of care as a business? So first and foremost, it's our responsibility morally and ethically to protect our employees and anyone else that could be potentially affected by the business. Secondly, as we all have seen in media over recent weeks and months, reputation can be immensely damaged by a high-profile health and safety situation. Businesses do need to take this into consideration and make sure that they're protecting the stakeholders for the business as well as employees hand in hand. And finally, the financial implications. As we spoke there earlier, the HSE fines and prosecutions are tremendous in recent years and months, and this can drastically impact a business that isn't able to potentially absorb those fines. So really acting proactively and potentially investing in your health and safety from that manner will enable you to reduce those financial implications later on. So thank you very much for your time today on the webinar. As I mentioned, any questions that you've actually input today will be, we'll email those answers back to yourself, and a recording will be made available here to yourselves shortly. Thanks very much for joining us.